welcome to another exciting episode of the Number One Comics Podcast. This is the only podcast that is dedicated to the review and discussion of first issues. I'm your host, Jonah. With me, as always, is Bill. Bill, how's it going?
Great, Jonah. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Outstanding.
So we've been talking about this character a lot over the last several months, just because it's really been the summer of Superman with the new movie that just came out. I know we talked a little bit about that. I do want to real quickly, because I know when we talked about it, it was in a completely different podcast. What was your thoughts on the Superman movie?
I loved it. I think it was probably, I want to say, my second favorite movie.
How many times have you seen it at this point?
I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love it. I'm like an unabashed fan of that movie, and I won't give like a really long review here. I'll just say, if you like superhero movies, even if you don't like Superman, it's a really good superhero movie. My wife, who is not a Superman fan or even really a superhero movie fan, she loved the movie too. Yeah. So it's really good. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, check it out. But because of that movie coming out, there had been a lot of focus even from DC Comics around Superman, with calling things like the summer of Superman, etc. And this included the launch of a brand new number one, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. This is Superman Unlimited number one. This was published by DC Comics. Cover date on it is July 2025. So I think it hit the stands in May, give or take. Cover price on this was $4.99. The writer is Dan Slott, and the artist is Raphael Albuquerque. Are you familiar with either of those people's works otherwise?
So I've heard a lot about Dan Slott, and I guess I never really put two and two together until I looked it up. I actually pulled up a Wikipedia articles so I could just be like, who is this guy? What has he done before? Yeah. I know he had a lot of involvement on the Superior Spider-Man series.
Yeah, he wrote
he's done a lot of
Brand
Spider-Man.
New Day, I think was kind of like the first thing that I remember reading of his. I also know he's got kind of a little bit of a reputation with fans online in terms of how he interacts with fans online. But I don't really know a lot about that, and I'm okay not knowing a lot about that. What I find is the less I know about the comic creators I'm reading about, sometimes the better. Yeah. When it comes to like whether or not, I want to enjoy the story for the story itself, or not enjoy the story for the story itself, and I don't need a lot of outside influence in terms of their behavior, their beliefs, whatever it may be.
Exactly.
And I do try to like compartmentalize that and separate that, but sometimes it can be hard. As a human being, sometimes it can be hard for me to do that. That said, when this came out and I saw it was written by Dan Slott, really the first thing that came on my mind is I hadn't seen that name in quite a while. At least that I've been, not that I'd been paying attention. Right. So it was kind of good to see it again, because other stuff that I have read of his, I recall enjoying it.
He's been around. He's got quite the resume, from what I understand. And he's been around quite a while too. I think before he went to Marvel, he was working with like Archie Comics and a few other things like that. I know a lot of his stuff from the 2000s. Yeah. Like his work on Spider-Man more than anything. But
yeah, I know I've got some other titles that I know he'd worked on. But yeah, like I said, I hadn't seen the name in a while, and I'd been out of the comics game for a while too, during the kind of 2010s when he was probably still doing a lot of work. But yeah, it was good to see that his name on there. So Superman, and here's the thing, this guy's been around for a very, very long time. So usually before we actually talk about the issue itself, I'll do not quite a deep dive, but I'll talk a little bit about the character and the history of the character. Yeah. All I'll simply say is Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. He debuted back in Action Comics number one in 1938. Wow. This is a character that is almost 90 years old, which is so wild to me. Yeah. And I think that's also very cool, and shows how a character like this can stand the test of time. So that's about all the deeper I'm going to get in the character itself or in the history, because he is one of the most iconic, well-recognizable characters in the history of literature. Oh, yeah. I think it's between like Mickey Mouse, Spider-Man, and Superman, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But if you I'm sure that anyone out there, even if they've never read a Superman comic or seen a Superman movie, would recognize the Superman symbol and could tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
What was your earliest exploits with Superman?
Probably the original motion picture with Chris Reeves. It was, and of course I don't think I saw it until I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, something like that. So it would have been like 86 roughly when I saw it.
Yep.
But that was really my first introduction to Superman. Then of course, growing up, we had the Superman and Lois TV, or Lois and Clark.
The Dean Cain.
Yeah, the Dean.
Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, we've had that. Of course, the death of Superman. Huge cultural
that would make it like national news.
That happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, those were really my big introductions to Superman.
I don't remember where I first learned of Superman. I feel like, and this is probably the case for most people, is like you're just kind of born knowing who Superman is. It's like as soon as you come out of the womb, you know who Superman is in one way, shape, or another.
Right.
Now, that said, I was never much of a Superman fan as a child.
I wasn't either.
Especially when I got into comic books. I always gravitated a lot more towards the more obscure, underrated characters. You know, I'd never read any real Superman comics or action comics for that matter. I did pick up like Death of Superman, Reign of the Supermen, which is kind of the story arc that followed the death of Superman. Yeah. But I didn't pick those up until like much later in life. Like I was not reading those as a teenager necessarily.
Right.
Even like the team stuff that I picked up, like the Justice League, which we've talked about previously, I didn't read that until a couple years after it was out that I remember, or at least didn't really get into it heavily.
Right.
So yeah, I've never had been a really huge fan of like Superman, Wonder Woman. That we kind of discussed that before when we talked about Trinity. Not too long ago. Now with the new Superman movie that was being released, like I said, there'd been a really big push for Superman. I thought it would be cool to kind of jump onto it, the character, and kind of see if my mind can be changed a little bit, because the stuff I do read of Superman, it's not like I don't like him. Again, I'm just not really drawn to him necessarily.
Right.
It's funny because there's a lot of opportunities to read Superman. Here's a list of like the Superman comics that are published today. You've got Absolute Superman, which I have been buying. I still haven't been able to finish the first issue. It's just a slog for me to try and get through.
Really?
I really need to get through that, and because there's like 12 issues of it out now, and it's Jason Aaron, who I do like as a writer. It's just tough for me for whatever reason. It's tough for me to get through. But you've got so Absolute Superman, Adventures of Superman, Book of L, Action Comics, Superman, The Kryptonite Spectrum, which I think is just a relatively new one. Batman / Superman, World's Finest, Superman, kind of the self-titled book, and then this book, and that doesn't even include any of the team books that he may be appearing in from time to time. So there's a lot of Superman exposure out there. Right. And I guess one question I'd have for any Superman fan is like, is this too much Superman exposure, or is it overwhelming for maybe more novice fans or people who are not as familiar with Superman? Because other than Absolute Superman, I'm not reading any of these other books. Gotcha. This has been the only one that I've had an opportunity to check out so far. Let's go ahead and dive into the issue. And first I want to start with the cover. And one thing I'll say with this cover, I love covers like this because I think it does a really good job of showing the scope of the world that Superman resides in. I don't like covers necessarily where, especially if it's like a team where it's just like a picture of the team or the character's not really doing anything. It's just a really pretty pinup. I do make exceptions, as we'll talk about when we get into like our Moon Knight episode, because I do make exceptions to this rule. But what I love about this cover is just, again, the scope of it. You've got the Justice League Watchtower in the corner. You've got Superman himself. He's taking up the bulk of the kind of the right-hand side of the cover. You've got Superman and Krypto. You've got some of his supporting cast, including Lois, Jimmy Olsen, his son Superboy is on there, and then there's a character that I didn't recognize at first, but he is introduced in he's introduced to me rather in some of the later issues. And he is like some type of a monkey guy name. I want to say his name is like Tammy or something. It's like Tam E, but I might be getting that wrong. But anyway,
right.
Another character on there who I didn't necessarily recognize. But I love this cover. What are your thoughts on the cover?
I liked it too. Very good artwork. I think the artwork throughout the book really was.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when we get into the review, because I thought the artwork was pretty solid. There's just a couple of instances where I was like, oh, that face looks kind of derpy. But other than that, no, the artwork on the cover and throughout is solid.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive inside the issue. We open up in Metropolis at the Daily Planet. I almost said Daily Bugle. We open up at the Daily Planet. There is a new media mogul owner of the Daily Planet. It sounds like she kind of took this over in a divorce. This is one of the companies that she got. Her name is Amani Edge. And she's announced to the staff at the Daily Planet that they're about to become a major player in her new media empire. It's not just going to be about newspapers necessarily. She states that she's primarily going to be a silent partner with editor-in-chief Lois Lane making all the final decisions. I don't know when Lois Lane became editor-in-chief, if it was this or if something happened beforehand, but she's no longer a reporter. At this point in time, she is the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. In attendance, you've got Jimmy Olsen, you've got Clark Kent. In fact, Clark's about to take a picture of them, but then he kind of hears some commotion outside, and so he, in the middle of this like discussion or conference that the owner is putting on, he like dips out quickly, and she's remarks even that's unbelievable that it's kind of like Lois's one of the most important days of her life, and her husband's like dipping out for whatever. And Lois, reassures her that Clark is now the premier reporter on the Superman beat. So if Superman's busy, then that means Clark's busy too. So he's essentially just out there doing his job. Revealing his super chest as he makes his way, Clark quickly changes. He's got his red, blue, and yellow streak that we see kind of speeding out of the side of the building. Now, on the streets below, there's a police car that's chasing down a car of intergang suspects in kind of this fancy BMW. And the gangsters are shooting at the cops with ray guns. So the police are calling in for backup, and one of the driver kind of sees Superman streak by, and he's like, I think backup's here. The very next page, we see that Superman has very quickly and already dealt with the two intergang members. He's handing them over to the cops. And it's funny because one of the gangsters even thanks Superman for stopping a giant ape from leveling Star City a week before, because his aunt lives there and it's like his favorite aunt. So he's like thankful for Superman, and this partner's like, dude, shut up. Like, you're embarrassing me. After that, Superman is back in the sky, and he hears the frantic cries of a mother crying for help. So he gets down there real quick, and he takes this sharp turn around a building. He arrives at the zoo where he helps a child that had fallen into a lion enclosure. I know this happens in real life. I gotta know, though, how do people fall into fucking animal enclosures at zoos? I don't get it.
No idea.
I'll never understand. I'll never understand that. I say that and watch this now. It's going to happen to me because I'm talking out of my ass.
Right.
Anyway. A few other things we see. He rescues an airplane that had some engine trouble, and he puts out a fire at a burning building. He saves a fishing boat that had a giant hole kind of punched in its hole at the bow. We also see him drop a tip off at a young musician playing guitar and singing in the park. This is always tough for me because I don't have a very musically inclined mind. So whenever I see singing in comic books, I have a really challenging time figuring out how to read those lyrics so that it sounds musical.
Yeah.
So I had to read this like 3 or 4 times, and finally I just went with like kind of like a loose cake impersonation because that's what I sound like anyway. But I've seen comics like that all the time where there's like singing in the comic, and I'm like, I don't know how to read this.
Yeah.
It's like the toughest thing for me to do as a reader. One thing it did have me wondering, though, where does he keep spare change or dollar bills in his costume.
I don't think I want to know.
I don't know if his red underpants have pockets. Maybe he's got like the little pocket in the front that the wiener can slide in and out of.
He could.
What is that called? There's a name for it.
Or like the fly pocket or whatever.
I don't know, or he keeps it in his boot or something. But I always wondered. I did not wonder that until reading this. I was like, where does he keep the money?
Yeah, because now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen Superman with like any type of like utility belts or pouches or any. I mean, obviously,
yeah. I don't know
it's
where
never been drawn by.
I don't know where he keeps it. But if anyone knows where he keeps his money, let us know.
Yeah.
Superman, after he flies kind of off away from that girl, he receives a call from the Justice League Watchtower. They've picked up an extinction-level event threat. There is a giant asteroid hurtling towards Earth. Now, there's some discussion at the Watchtower as to how that's, how did it evade Red Tornado's sensors. Now, Red Tornado is a character. He is actually no longer sort of a physical character. He's kind of the living AI of the Justice League's Watchtower.
Okay.
But he is an actual character. Anyway, the question is, how did it get past his sensors? He reveals that the asteroid is made of pure inertron. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Well, it's a made-up word, so I guess it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Inertron, which is a fictional otherworldly metal. It's highly reflective and is impossible to scan through. And this is not the first time this has been revealed. This metal's been around since like 1965. I think it came from like the 31st century, so it was part of the Legionnaires storylines. I think I first remember seeing about it in a Legionnaire story. But it's been around for a long time.
Okay.
Superman flies up to the asteroid, and he flies at full speed towards the thing, and knowing how tough Inertron is, he's not sure if he's going to be able to break through it, but he does. He smashes through this thing, and it turns out that only the outer top layer, only about a micron thick, so it's a very thin sheet of Inertron, and underneath is a giant chunk of solid kryptonite. And anyone who knows anything about Superman knows, whether it's from the movies or the comics or the cartoons, kryptonite is his kryptonite. I mean, that's why they call it something is like someone's kryptonite.
Yeah.
Is because it can harm him. Whereas he's the Man of Steel and he's impervious to most things, but kryptonite is not one of those things. Mm-hmm. So he's already started feeling like he's failed as he's watching this giant chunk of kryptonite hurtle towards Earth. And he's, recognizing or thinking that everyone on his adopted homeworld is going to perish because of this. Now, even when he's facing those impossible odds, he's not one to give up so easily. Mm-hmm. He has to slow the asteroid down, and so he uses his supervision to see the asteroid is on a course to hit Rio de Janeiro, and he knows he has to kind of redirect it or alter its course. So he grabs hold of the asteroid. The pain is unlike anything that he's felt before. He knows he can't let go, even if it's killing him. Now, as he's holding on to this asteroid or trying to redirect it, his life begins flashing before his eyes. And we, the readers, are taken back on this journey with him. We see his birth parents, his home planet, Krypton, exploding as his ship is rocketed away from the destruction. We see his adopted parents here on Earth, the Kents. We have 2 pages showing Clark as an adolescent who's growing into a young man, and his powers are beginning to manifest, and he's continuing to learn what they can do and what he can do with them, whether it's lifting a tractor above his head or even flying. We see his parents guide him along the way. He, at one point, is asking his parents' permission to venture out into the 31st century with some new friends that he'd met. This is the Legionnaires. Mm-hmm. And mom's like, yeah, but be home by 9. It's a school night kind of thing.
Right.
And in the future, he sees there's a statue of himself that's been resurrected as a monument. And it's funny because he's got an outstretched arm, and perched on the outstretched arm is an eagle. And so his big question is so at some time in my future, am I going to get an eagle? Which I thought was pretty funny.
Right.
As Clark continues to grow, we see that he has ventured out into the world. We've got news headlines touting exploits of the mystery savior from the Daily Planet. There's additional flashbacks showing Clark joining the Daily Planet staff, meeting Jimmy Olsen, and even meeting Lois Lane for the first time. We see encounters with Lex, which this includes Lex using kryptonite against Superman. We cut back into space, and back in the present, Superman believes that he's rerouted the trajectory of the asteroid out to the sea. But then he sees a remote fishing village now in its path, and he attempts to again divert its course kind of one more time. While doing this, we quickly flash to a splash page of some of the various villains that he's encountered, as well as the friends that he's made over the years and that he's shared adventures with. We cut to Clark's proposal to Lois, his battle and death at the hands of Doomsday. Mm-hmm. He remembers those that took his place, so we have a cool shot of the 4 replacement Supermen, which was Superboy, Steel, Eradicator, and the cyborg Superman.
Yeah.
We also get to his eventual resurrection, where he again sees that monument at that point has been erected, and his one comment is, "I never did get that eagle." So again, which I thought was pretty funny. Mm-hmm. We see his wedding to Lois and the birth of his son, Jonathan Kent. We see Jonathan leaving them as a younger boy, only to return a few years older. And at this point, Superman, as he's trying to divert the course of this asteroid, he starts speaking out to his son, hoping that his message is heard. And he's talking about, hey, take care of, tell my mom and dad that I love them, take care of your mom, tell her she's the most important thing to me, essentially. And also, take care of the people of the planet, and you'll come to find that they're not all. And then before he can even really finish his sentence, this asteroid hits. We then cut on the following page that 3 months have passed. Clark wakes up, and he's got Crypto sitting on his chest. He's on board the Justice League's watchtower. His mother, son Jonathan, and Lois have all been waiting, and they rush in to see him. The doctor, told him that he'd been out for 3 months, essentially. His son tells him that he heard his message that he'd said for him. Clark's father walks in with Clark Kent? ? No, it's not Clark Kent that he walks in with. It is the Martian Manhunter, or John Jones, posing as Clark Kent. Because remember, as a Martian, he is a very adept shape changer. And he'd been kind of doing his job, doing chores around the house, posing as Clark while Clark was down and out. He then is kind of back on his feet. He goes and his fellow Justice Leaguers greet him, a lot of it very enthusiastically. Some almost to the point where I was like, is this guy being sarcastic? Where, is it Shazam? Shazam's like, 3 cheers for Superman. I'm like, that just sounds like you're being kind of a prick.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe that's just how I read it. Most people are enthusiastic. There's always the one exception, that being Batman, which Batman greets him and is basically like, come with me. There's something you need to see. So Batman takes Clark and shows him a nation state called El Caldero. It's nestled between Brazil and Corto Maltese. And what they see and learn is that El Caldero as a nation, became the largest supplier of the planet's newest, rarest, and most valuable metal, kryptonite. Overnight, they became one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. Now, at this point, Connor Kent, a.k.a. another Superboy, because at this point in time, I think there's like 3 or 4 Superboys running around. Right. You've got Connor Kent, Superboy Prime, I think, is still out there, and then Jonathan Kent, his son, is Superboy. Anyway, Connor Kent and Supergirl arrive, and they're looking a little beat up in this new normal and far more dangerous world. They reveal that all of their enemies now can get their hands on kryptonite pretty easily. So it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to do their job. Superman states that they'll find a way. and a little hard work will do him some good. He's optimistic about it. Superboy says, well, that's easy for you to say because you've got a secret weapon. Superboy then realizes that Superman doesn't know yet and doesn't know what he's talking about. No one's told him. Batman says, allow me. And he activates these spectrometer lights with the snap of his finger. Batman tells him that 3 months ago, a mountain of kryptonite fell on him and he should have been crushed and atomized. But he wasn't, and this is how he survived. Under the spectrometer lights, we see that Superman is glowing gold. And with that, we go to the next issue where everything changes. And that's where this one leaves us. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I really like this one. And I'm not a Superman reader. I've never been a reader of the comics. I think the most I ever read was during the reign of the Superman and the death of Superman and the Doomsday arc and all that. It's a nice little trip down memory lane for me, somebody who's never read a whole lot of Superman comics. It was good. It was kind of like a good little catch-up thing. Yeah. Like if this is your first Superman comic you were ever picking up, this catches you up on 50 plus years of history.
Yeah, for sure.
I did like that it kind of parallels the current media climate a little bit with like the Daily Planet and everything like that. Like they're kind of trying to get away from like that guerrilla journalism and it's kind of going more towards like a social media kind of stuff.
Right. Trying to really expand the platform X. Yeah. I mean, they're not calling it X, but things like that. Right.
Yeah, I really like how it kind of shifts the status quo for the super family because you've got all these, well, I call them the super family, kind of like they have the Bat family. Yeah. They're not necessarily related, but they're all they all put the S on their chest and do their thing. And they're all weak against kryptonite. And now it's in abundance versus just sitting in Lex Luthor's
It does change
desk.
things. And it's funny because you take these characters that are usually so overly powerful to where they're almost uninteresting to me, right? That's kind of been my biggest beef with Superman. Right. Always is that he's just so powerful. Yeah. And I love this change to the status quo a little bit. And we will get into it. The first thing I would say is that, as much as I've know Superman, I haven't read a lot of Superman. Before this, I could probably count on one hand how many Superman comics I've ever purchased. It's kind of a handful of action comics where, like, I think it was mostly because Brainiac was the villain, and I liked Brainiac, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll check those out. And then I bought one of the Superman comics that I couldn't even tell you what issue it was, whether it was Action Comics or a Superman comic, but it was one of those that, like, takes place in Iowa. And so, like, the internal are all pages of, like, things happening in Des Moines. So there's, like, a picture of him flying past, like, Principal Building. Oh, cool. 801 Grand in downtown Des Moines. And so I picked that one up just because of that. Other than that, I don't read a lot of Superman. And this, I think, overall is a really good issue for people like us because it's easy to hit the ground with who Superman is, not only in terms of his never-ending optimism, his inability to give up even with faced against this impossible task. Yeah. And so you hit the ground running, so to speak. You're given a chance to see him do his super things, save the child from the lion, help an airplane, tip the girl some money, things like that. And then you're also given this flashback sequence of his life flashing before his eyes, kind of recapping all of this history. Did you know all of the history, or was there any new tidbits there for you?
Probably not. There's probably some stuff that I wasn't really aware of. Of course, seeing the death and seeing the page with like the 4 replacement Superman was really cool to me because I'm familiar with that. Yeah. But yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot in there that I think I was like, oh, hey, I knew that one. I know where that one's from.
I think really the new thing for me, because the death I remembered, the wedding. I didn't know a lot about Jonathan Kent. as Superboy or as his son. I knew that he has a son named Jonathan Kent, and I've read Jonathan Kent in titles like Secret Six, but I don't really know the character otherwise. One thing I liked about that whole flashback sequence is I almost felt like that was made for me as a reader. And the reason I say that, if you look at DC's continuity with any of its characters, Superman included, it is so incredibly convoluted.
Yeah.
Going back to Infinite Crisis, and then you had Crisis on Infinite Earths, rather, and then Infinite Crisis, and then you had Flashpoint, the New 52, Convergence, Rebirth. It would be really easy to bog somebody down with maybe too much conflicting information all at once. This really seemed to focus on the big beats, right? The wedding, the death at the hands of Doomsday. And so I felt like they were really smart in what they did reveal to us in terms of his life flashing before his eyes, what we as new readers kind of need to know as to this character's past.
Yeah.
I do like the new status quo as well. What's your take on this, on his new ability, where he can essentially turn gold and maybe is not as impervious to kryptonite, or maybe is not as pervious to kryptonite, I think would be the word. It does set up, I think, some interesting story elements that we can look at in future runs. And to fill you in, because I know you probably haven't read issues 2, and I think issue 5 just came out today. I just picked it up a few minutes ago before coming here.
Right.
But so essentially, what we learn with this new ability is his body is releasing all of the yellow sun energy that's stored up when he takes on too much damage from green kryptonite. So if he is injured enough by the kryptonite, his body is basically using all of that stored energy to heal itself, and then it also temporarily blocks him from the kryptonite radiation.
Okay.
Here's the catch, though. It only lasts for a few minutes. I think 3 minutes tops is what they clocked it at. And when it wears off, he's left incredibly vulnerable, like no superpowers whatsoever. And so he could be injured or killed, whatever, if he is in kind of that period of time where that's worn off and his abilities haven't or his powers haven't returned fully yet. So again, I think that's interesting because, like I said, is one of the biggest issues I've always had with Superman is, hey, this guy's too powerful. Yeah. But what if he's not? You know, what if there's instances where maybe he's not as strong or as powerful or as invulnerable as he often is? So I think that's cool. And I like to see how that's going to be explored further.
Right.
Let's talk about the art, because I know you'd mentioned, the art is pretty good, especially considering all of the different things that the artist is tasked with drawing, from talking heads or just people standing around talking, the big action sequence with the meteorite falling. You've got the flashback sequences with all the different characters. I mean, that's a tall order. There's a lot of different things to draw here. Yeah. And I think that for the most part, it is really good. Like I said, there is a couple of faces. There's one face towards the end where Superman is like talking to Superboy and Supergirl, and he just looks derpy. I don't know how else to put it. But other than that, I really enjoyed the art. What was your take more on the art?
Yeah, I think, like you said, tall order, going back through the history of Superman. I really enjoyed it. I think I probably was hooked on the art within the first moments of him turning into Superman, doing all the things like, saving the people on the plane, on the boat, putting the tip in the girl's little guitar case, just or whatever it was. Yeah, just the tip. Damn it. Yeah, no, I really like that. And I think Dan Slott did a great job with the writing, too.
I did, too. I really liked his writing on this. I like how he characterizes Superman. The dialogue, which you don't get a lot of dialogue in this. I mean, a lot of it is kind of him talking to us.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposition.
Right, but all of it sounds really good, and it was not a quick read necessarily, but again, unlike some other Superman books I've tried to read, it was not a slog for me to try and get through.
Right.
It was very easy to read.
Well, I've always liked and I like that they did this in the Superman movie that recently came out too. Yep. I like when they humanize Superman a little bit 100%. More. And not just make him stand there and have stuff bounce off of him.
I think Batman works so much better as kind of that standoffish prop, so to speak. Superman does not.
Yeah.
In order for Superman to work, in my opinion, you really have to humanize him and get to know him on a for lack of a better term, an intimate level.
And I didn't write down who actually said this quote in there, but I love the quote anyway. It says, "Every day is somebody's big day."
Yeah.
I think that was towards kind of the beginning, maybe.
Yep.
I think maybe Lois said it.
I think, probably. That sounds like something Lois would say.
But it's, I mean, you think about all the stuff that he does, and he's flying at supersonic speed, helping all these people, and it's like, for that person that was on that plane that was going down, or
the people on the sinking ship, or the child who's now going to have a story to tell for the rest of his life about the time he fell into a lion's den and was saved by Superman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
no, that makes a lot of sense. That's good stuff. Let's talk real quickly about what came next. And the reason I say it's real quick is because this issue came out just a few months ago. And like I said, as of recording this, I just picked up issue 5 today, so I haven't had a chance to read it. I have read the other previous issues, which one thing I've liked is with these other issues so far, we have learned a little bit more about this new ability. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of focused. We've gotten a dual focus on the Daily Bugle, the Daily Planet, not Bugle, the Daily Planet, sort of what its expansion looks like, to where they're building an office in Gotham. So there's a issue that takes place in Gotham with Man-Bat. In that, and then you've got there's an issue with Crypto that's heavily featured. Why? Because he's Crypto and he's in the movie. Makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying, especially with a lot of these issues seem kind of almost not one and done, but it is like there's the reoccurring theme and the overarching subplot, but then you've got these sort of monsters of the week type vibe to it as well.
Okay.
I love comics like that.
Yeah.
So because you could pick up maybe issue 4 or 5 and not necessarily be completely lost if you'd missed the first 3.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, let's go. Final thoughts, ratings. Bill, what are your final thoughts? And would you buy the next, at least have read the next, skipped it, or would you rather have kryptonite shoved in your pee hole?
Well, you're going to learn a lot about me on this episode. No, I think that I would at very least read the next issue. I don't go out of my way to buy a lot of comics anymore, unless there's something that I know that's coming out that's like, holy crap, I have to read this, or if the cover looks cool, something like that. I don't go browsing through comic book stores like I used to. But this one, as not somebody who avidly read Superman back in the day or anything like that, this one really surprised me. So I would definitely pick up the next issue.
Excellent. Not only would I buy the next, I have been buying the next issues, and I'm going to continue buying it for the foreseeable future. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a really good jumping on point for fans, old and new. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody who's looking to get into Superman, start with this. This is a really good place to begin, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. As always, thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at the #1 Comics Podcast. You can find us as part of the Field of Geeks Network. So go to YouTube or wherever you're getting your podcasts from. Just type in Field of Geeks. You'll find us there. Special thanks to everybody at the Field of Geeks Network for helping to make this happen. Special thanks to Raven X for the theme song as well. And we will catch you guys next time. For Bill, I'm Jonah. See ya.